All right. Oh, look at this. We've got Australia. We've got Seattle, Washington, Lauren. So welcome everybody to this week's live Q&A. And I want to congratulate everyone here for prioritizing this event over the Super Bowl. It puts us into a very elite group, all of us here, that we are more interested in perhaps our insights into our own being as opposed to the final score of a egg-shaped ball being tossed around. No offense to football. Anyway, so we have an amazing topic today. It's a big topic, and the points, the three biggest energy sucks, each one of them is gargantuan. It won't be solved in just one session, but it does point to some of the most fundamental challenges that we wrestle with as human beings, I guess. And what we can do about it, but the solutions are also equivalent to the difficulty of these challenges, these energy sucks. The solution also won't come overnight and requires some reconfiguring of oneself. So, just before we begin, I wanted to remind everyone there's a virtual hand at the bottom that you can always raise, and one of the admins will bring you on the stage if you want to ask a question in person. And otherwise, there's a chat in the top right that I see many of you have already discovered, and you can always ask your question there. And then there's a Q&A box, literally a specific Q&A box, I was just told, that you can see and ask your questions there. So lots of places where we can post comments and questions and engage. All right. So the three biggest energy sucks. Really, it's a shortened version of what we're really talking about because it had to fit into the subject line of the email. Because it's so much more than energy suck. What we're about to talk about are the three most life-impacting, happiness-impacting, connectedness impacting, communication, relationship to oneself and to the universe impacting, quality of life impacting, and as well as how much can we get done in this life if we learn to transcend these three energy sucks. So it's so much bigger than just maybe perhaps a productivity hack. There's lots of those out there. So with that said, the first one, and this one's probably my favorite. I talk about it all the time, and you may have heard me talk about it already, but I wanted to bring it up again, and that is being lost in thought. So there's tons of research on this, actually. I looked it up recently, and I was surprised just how much research there is. And from the highest institutions, supposed highest institutions at Harvard and these big universities, who have looked at how much time we actually spend thinking about things that are relevant to the task at hand of what we're actually doing versus thinking about things that are completely unrelated to what we're doing, and also thoughts about things that we have no impact on or control over. And the finding was at least 50 and upward closer to 70% of our time every single day is spent lost in thought. And so there's a good use of thinking when it actually applies to what you're doing, so that there's experience you can pull into the picture. There's analytical and practical purpose to your thoughts. But most of the thoughts, more than half, and maybe even 2/3 and 3/4 of our thoughts every day are just an errant getting lost in down these rabbit holes. And when we're in these rabbit holes, we're not really here. We're not really present. You can feel when you catch yourself, and often you catch yourself lost in thought when it gets so absurd about what you're thinking that even the mind itself will kind of wake you up out of it and come back to the present moment. It's sometimes ridiculous, the rabbit holes we go into with our thinking. And it's okay, we have to accept everything. The key actually to coming out of being lost in thought is to accept that you're lost in thought. It's one of the paradoxes of life, that you don't calm your busy mind by wanting it to be calm, but by accepting that it's busy. So the same thing applies here, is when you notice that you're lost in thought, the way you rewire yourself is to accept it, and without frustration, bring your attention back to the task at hand, the present moment. It's one of the exercises we do often. We'll probably do that meditation at the end of this session today as well. So when we emerge back from catching ourselves being lost in thought, it feels like emerging from a fog. And that's what it is. We're in this foggy place. This is where past and future and endless, worries and fear and anxiety live. And when we spend 50 to 70% of our day going down these rabbit holes, then we're spending a huge chunk of our time and energy allowing this endless loop of thoughts to dominate our life experience. And that's when it starts to weigh us down, because a lot of these loopy thoughts, some of them are just silly thoughts, but some of them are destructive in nature, meaning we get down on ourselves. We start to fear the future. We become so closely attached to each one of these thoughts because we're identified with it. There's no awareness when you're lost in thought. The awareness comes when you snap out of it again, and you realize, oh my gosh, I've been lost in thought for the last 10 minutes, and come back. But while you're lost in thought, it's a full, complete identification with thought, and which is ultimately what I've heard people like Eckhart Tolle describe as that is the ego. Identification with thought is ego, and that's really, you can tell where it has you in its grip, and you're not able to do anything else. I mean, it's a state of paralysis, lost in thought. Things could be happening around you, and they are. Life is happening around you, and you're not there. You're not here. And it's a fascinating state to be in, because physically you're here, but your mind can take you elsewhere in such a big way that you're completely not present and responding to your surroundings. Shows the power of the mind, actually, that if you were to harness that, for example, in the context of manifestation, that you can take yourself places that, even though the current reality outside of you doesn't reflect those places, you can go there and experience it as if it's real. Because the anxiety and the fear and the trepidation and the worry experienced while you're lost in thought feels real. It feels like it's actually happening. And the body and the mind doesn't know the difference. They react to that as if it was happening around you. You were actually in that situation. So we're creating an enormous amount of stress for ourselves when we're lost in thought. An enormous amount of energy that is being consumed through this identification with thought. And it's all thought that is irrelevant and has no bearing on what we're doing. And more destructively, when these thoughts are self-deprecating and limiting beliefs and And these thoughts around, I'm never going to get anywhere, or whatever thoughts come, we're so glued to them that we can't extract ourselves until something happens. Like I said before, sometimes the thoughts get so silly and ridiculous and overboard that you kind of snap out of it. And or the pressure, if you pay close attention to your experience when you come back out of thought, it's this relief. It's not just emerging from a fog, but there's also this relief that you experience from coming out of your head, out of your mind. You're just letting go of this building pressure of just one thought after another thought after another thought, and you're completely identified with it. And it takes you around on this roller coaster ride, and it's just exhausting. And for that entire time, your energy has been consumed and depleted. So that happens with every thought that we give our attention to. It consumes us. So even when it's not a prolonged episode of getting lost in thought for 5 or 10 or who knows, 20 minutes, there's still times, and especially when you're a meditator, that you can, it doesn't matter how long you've been meditating, you could find yourself being lost in thought for much of the hour that you're sitting down to go inward and be still, and it's just consumed by thoughts. And there's just it's not relevant. It consumes your energy. There's this building pressure, and it's confusing. You emerge from that and you just kind of want to shake it off, because a lot of those thoughts are just ridiculous. And a lot of the time they're negative in nature. They're about regrets from the past, replaying events, thinking how what you should have done. Not, you're not accepting what has happened and moving on. You're just kind of replaying a scenario. And the thoughts about the future, of projecting and wanting to control and steer and predict. I say this in various places. If I asked, anyone asks you outright, can you predict the future? Your answer would be, no, of course not. No one can predict the future. Yet when we plan and set these goals and chase outcomes, that's exactly what we're doing. And for some reason, we think we can predict the future and how things are going to unfold. And then when things are unfolding differently, life happens on its own accord, we get upset. And so we're trying to predict the future. We're also living as if we're going to live forever. There's this just foreverness concept baked into these planning for the future, that future plans that we make. And then we get upset when things happen differently, which is so counter the nature of life, the evolutionary concept of things consistently unfolding and changing and morphing and growing and hopefully learning and being reshaped and being reborn. And nothing stands still in life. And then we come along and we try to create a plan, a 6-month plan, a 6-year plan, whatever, 10-year plan, and we try to hold on to that and make it happen. And there's lots of sources that tell us we should make it happen. There's so much resistance built into that approach, and it goes counter the natural flow of life. So that's the first one, right? Getting lost in thought. And if we can come out of, reduce the amount of getting lost in thought, even by just 5%, even by 10%, 1% at a time improvement. It's all gradual. Rewiring yourself is a gradual process, because you're literally rewiring how your brain is currently functioning. Then you gain all of that time back. If you're looking for extra time during the day and even in your whole life, this is the way to get it. The way you can get back more than half of your life is to learn to become aware of your thoughts, so that thoughts just don't come along, pull you down a rabbit hole, and then you're gone for half the day if you're living daylight. But that you're actually aware of thoughts as they come and go, and be able to just choose whether to engage with them or not. Because again, every thought has a weight. And if you engage with that thought, if you give that thought your attention, you become the thought. You take on the weight of that thought. Some thoughts are light, some thoughts are heavier. If you meditated at all, you'll have a good read on that already. But even good thoughts, like being in awareness, is actual choice. Until we become aware of our thoughts, we're really at the mercy of just any thought coming along, and we believe it, and then we get pulled down the rabbit hole, and then we're lost in thought for half to 2/3 of the day. So that is the most primary source of regaining energy, regaining time. And being lost in thought is never fun. It's squirrely, it's foggy, it brings you down, it's heavy, there's pressure. So coming out of those thoughts sooner will also lift your mood and return joy and inspiration, because that comes from engaging with what's in front of us and in the happening of right now. That's where creativity lives, inspiration. The unknown is really a beautiful, magical thing. The unknown is what the mind is afraid of, but that's ultimately because it wants to know things and control things. But that's ultimately where life is happening, in that fresh new moment that comes along, the next moment of unknown. And to be present with that, and to be an observer of that, to be a facilitator of that, a co-creator of that, is like, what is wanting to happen here? And with awareness, we can become that facilitator of life, that co-creator. And instead of being in resistance, we collaborate. We collaborate with life as it's happening. It's the only way, and it's the best way. So that was the first point. The second one, and they're somewhat related, and that is to come out of reactivity. Going back to getting lost in thought, if you look very closely, what's happening there is when the thought comes along, what is the impetus for giving you its attention, for latching onto it, for attaching yourself to it? Well, it's judgment. This is an annoying thought. The moment you get consumed by an annoying thought, you've reacted to it. Even positive thoughts, there's a reaction that happens to your thoughts. You're not purely observing them and feeling, does this thought resonate with me or not? But rather, it's a reactive quality that initiates getting consumed by thought, and then that leads to the next thought. And you're in this state of reactivity. So that applies to not just thoughts, but our feelings as well. When feelings arise in our body as a result of thoughts, everything's connected. Then too, it's like, oh, that's a feeling I don't like. It's unpleasant. We react to it, and we push it down. So coming out of reactivity, and a lot of that is physical, right? You're really reacting to something and feeling that resistance is what initiates getting lost in thought. It's what initiates being in resistance to a situation that is happening. You want it to be different because you have a plan, and this doesn't match the plan. And then we're in this reactive state where we can't think clearly anymore. We don't make good decisions, and muddy decisions, bad decisions bear muddy fruit, and then that perpetuates itself. We linger on situations. Reactivity ultimately is a lingering on something that's already happened, as opposed to seeing something for what it is, and that entail that there's an acceptance baked into your experience. And then from a point of acceptance, we can take action. But when we're in a reactive state, then we're just replaying that situation. Next time this happens, I'm going to, do this or say that, or why did this happen to me? Or you can't wait to tell all your coworkers or friends that you wouldn't believe somebody cut me off in traffic. And we replay and ultimately live in the past. Reactivity is living in the past. And it's the immediate past, but it's still the past, meaning this has just happened. I want it to be different. And nothing ever in the history of the universe has changed because you want it to be different. It's already happened. It's done. And the lingering on something and complaining about it just doesn't get us anywhere. Doesn't. The tricky part with that is that the mind thinks that by accepting something that it's going to be permanent, and it's not. But when we're too close to our thoughts again, believing what our mind tells us, then we think that these situations that we don't like, that are unpleasant, that don't fit our plan, and all these things, the reason why we're so afraid of them and so in resistance to them is because we think that it's permanent. And it isn't. There's no reason to think that anything is permanent. It's a momentary experience, a momentary unfolding of life. And if it's something that you think you want to change, the best way to change it, because maybe you can have an impact on it. Maybe you can bring a better or different unfolding into the situation. But it starts from acceptance. All change starts from accepting where you are right now. And that is the path of least resistance. And that is where you think clearest. And that's when you can take what I call clear action, is that you're not stuck on something. And part of your energy, and even a big part of your energy is in that stuck state, but rather that you're able to see it for what it is. In that seeing it for what it is, usually the solution arises. Solution doesn't arise from, maybe you can bring in some past experience, but it's ultimately every situation contains the seed of the solution. And you just have to be open, and in a receiving mode, your energy needs to be open. When you're reactive, you're closed and combative and defensive. But when you're in receiving mode, you're open and you're curious and you're engaging, and in that state you'll see the solution to the situation, and you're not afraid of the situation. And so in that state, it's like life just gives us the answer of what needs to happen from here. And again, we just need to be open to receiving the answer. So much of our misery as these creatures that we are comes from blocking ourselves from the natural wisdom, the natural GPS that is built into every one of us. We have here and there, we have a glimpse, an intuitive hit. We have a glimpse of something that really resonates and something else that doesn't. But we, for the most part, are conditioned out of that and are told not to trust that. When we are unique beings, each and every single one of us, and that is our unique compass within ourselves. Nobody else can have that and tell us what's right for us. Even most well-meaning environment parents, they're still only coming from their own experience. So they can't know you the way that you know yourself, because you are in your body. And your body's telling you when a situation is for you or not for you. And you have to live from that place, not what other people say, not these outside voices, not what we've been conditioned with or what we should be doing, ought to be doing, and what should be happening because we're trying to achieve some outcome and willing to sacrifice our experience of now in exchange for that future happy day. All of this is leading to misalignment. It leads to disorientation, confusion, not feeling like you have a purpose, because ultimately your purpose comes out of all of this. We're not doing this just to calm our mind, our monkey mind. We're not doing this just so that we, can maybe complete our to-do list better today, be more productive or efficient. That's a part of it, but ultimately it's to find inner alignment, to live by our own truth, to not be subject to this roller coaster of up and downs if we're attaching ourselves to thoughts that are coming along in response to what's happening around us, but rather that we're planted in our, on our own 2 feet, in our own being. And from there's a trust in a higher purpose. You're not trying to figure it all out by yourself. And it gets scary and lonely when we're in our thoughts. We get really isolated and cut off from life and from flow. And that's what is so scary and leads to depression and so forth. But when we're in our truth and feeling our body and connected to our sensations, right? Our sensations are the glue, the connective tissue to what's happening around us. Then we're connected to what's happening around us, which is the infinity of all possibilities. It's endless. Life is just endless possibilities. And when you connect to that simply through your senses, that's what they're there for, what you're hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, smelling, then you're connected to that infinity. And it's so simple. And we create so much disarray for ourselves when we cut ourselves off from that, because we're lost in thought, we're lost in reactivity, we're walking around judging, blaming, wanting things that have already happened to be different. It's quite crazy when you think about it, that no wonder we're miserable, that no wonder life seems hard when we live through that mental lens, through that reactive lens, through that controlling lens. So that was the second point. So learning to come out of reactivity is so key. So that you can actually see things as they are, so that there's an acceptance built into your mindset of, okay, this is a situation that's just happened, and this is what the situation is revealing about me, about others, a lesson that could be contained. That's another healthy attitude, is to look for the lesson in whatever you're doing. I was reading a book by Deepak Chopra recently, and the way you burn off karma, I mentioned this, I think, last week, is by either just, suffering through your karmic debt, but also, and karma is just cause and effect. That's all it is. It's everything in life. This is cause and effect. This is the world. It's quite mathematical if you think about it. Sometimes I joke there's these alien programmers sitting behind all of this, and they're doing their best, but they're not perfect. There's lots of bugs in the world, and so you reap the rewards, and from the spiritual realm, the analogy would be that the seeds that you sow result in a certain type of fruit and a harvest. So be super mindful and careful of what you sow, because that's going to be coming to life at some point sooner. And so coming out of all of that and going back to just the basics of life is telling us where to go and how to respond, and what we're seeking is not to be found in some future place, but it's in engaging with right now. This permanent happiness that we seek, that we sacrifice our current life experience for, in hopes that it will be happy, when something happens, happy when syndrome in the future. Again, this is, by the way, a high achiever trait. We've talked about this. Is this happy when, always outcome oriented, always chasing goals, always thinking we'll be happy when this or that falls into place, when we achieve this or that. And that never happens. It doesn't happen. Yet we keep doing that. It's a form of mania, madness. But it's also because no one shows us any other way. I was living that way too, and very fortunate to have been able to go deeper and transcend that. But this is how most of, especially Western society, lives. in this high achiever, outcome-oriented place. And the whole goal of these talks, and I have a big announcement to make at the end of this, in the push to become a top performer, where you're in the performance, in the present unfolding of what's happening. It's a very different life experience, and life feeds you there. Life gives you the answers there. Life is alive there. You feel your own aliveness. When you're living from thoughts, it's stale, it's the past. It's reactive, it's combative, it's resisting. Huge difference when you shift into a performance mindset, where you're interested about the fulfillment of the process, the journey, and less focused on the goal. It's actually how you get to your goal the quickest, is to be focused on how you're feeling now, because you're best at your best when you're in joy, you're at your best, you're coordinated, you're making smart, clean, light, clear decisions when you're connected to what's happening, uncluttered by stuff from the past. And so that's actually how you reach your goals the quickest and most efficient, and you're having fun along the way if you're more concerned with the journey, with what's happening right now, than you are with the outcome. Of course, we have to, as I said in the beginning, we have to get into that habit of noticing our thoughts, staying out of reactivity, and then we can start to really enjoy and accept and act clearly and make clear decisions that then lead to clear outcomes. So it's all connected, and it's all connected to right now, the ability to stay here right now. All right, the third point. We have a question on the thing, but I want to address one more thing, because it's the top three energy sucks. So the third one is a more of practical nature, and that is to do one thing at a time. And this is where we, again, if we have awareness of our thoughts, if we have awareness and staying out of reactivity, then this becomes a lot easier. Is to find, have a to-do list, but whatever you're doing, give it your fullest attention. Don't think of the next thing you need to do while you're still doing this thing. It's stay focused, and then switch when you're done. And it will, again, this is very rational and commonsensical stuff. It's like when you're focused on the task at hand, you're most likely to complete the task at hand in an efficient and logical manner. And then you're not cluttered by everything else that you're having to do. Think of it as open browsers. When you have a browser and you have all the tabs open, you're jumping between tabs, it's the most stressful experience ever. I think we've all experienced this. You're trying to do this, and you pay your bills there, and answer somebody here, and switch over to your chat. I mean, it's crazy making, and you wind up being super inefficient. It stresses you out, and you can't be, errors, a much higher rate of errors. So we can't expect, if we're just jumping around, to have a fulfilling experience. And again, it's about the fulfillment. It's about being able to say at any point in life, if somebody asks you, how are you? You're going to reflect on pretty much right now, today, maybe the last few days at most. It's never about achievements from last year or 10 years or even just a month ago or a week ago. You're reflecting when somebody asks you, how do you feel? You're reflecting on right now. And that's the quality of your life. The contents of your life right now is what you rate your success by. We forget about stuff very quickly. Anyway, so doing one thing at a time, staying out of thoughts, staying out of reactivity, and then applying that mindfulness to when you're focused on a particular task. That will make that task more efficient, more productive, easier. It'll make it lighter and make more fun. And you invite creativity. You need creativity for good solutions. You want creativity as part of every decision-making process, so that you're not just repeating the past patterns, even if they worked in the past. It's stale, and that's how we get bored. That's how we burn out, and so forth. So it's all linked together. All right, I saw a question came up. All right. Okay, Nora. I'm losing my focus so easily. How to get my focus back and not always multitasking all the time. Multitasking is killing my brain. Beautiful, yes. Not beautiful that it's killing your brain, but this is what we were just talking about. Is in the jumping around between to-dos that it feels like we're killing our brain. And it's fantastic that you're actually sensing this, that you're aware of the weight of jumping around and how it's driving you crazy. So that's the first piece here, that's actually a really good sign. Now, the easiest way to refocus is to notice that your thoughts have drifted down some rabbit hole. And in that point of noticing it, we tend to get frustrated. It's like, oh my gosh, why did I lose focus again? And why can't I stay focused on this? This is all this extra chatter and clutter that we create. And there's a lot of energy associated with that. You're burning energy with your frustration about not being able to stay focused. That's the first thing you can do, is to accept that you just lost focus and bring your attention back to what you're doing. In that moment of acceptance, actually, it's a crucial key moment. This is how you rewire yourself and come out of the reactivity, come out of the frustration, come out of the wanting it to be different, coming out of the self-judgment, coming out of all that muddy stuff, that nasty stuff that doesn't make us feel good either. So first thing there is to practice. When you notice that you've lost focus, accept it and be okay with it. And from there, just bring your attention back to what you do want to be focusing on. And that will already relieve a ton of this what you're describing as it's killing you. That will relieve a lot of that pressure. Another way to accelerate refocusing, when you've noticed, focus on the detail. So something that is in front of you, it could be the keys on your keyboard, is just look at the print of the letters on it, or the shape of your laptop, or the webcam, or if you have a plant next to you, even just examine the plant and in detail. And that will bring you back into right now, in the present moment, simply by noticing the detail. It pulls you in, it shuts out the past and the future, and you're suddenly back again. So it's literally that easy. It's just to look at something that's right around you. It could just be your phone, even your remote, or just a pen. I mean, just look at it in detail. It'll bring you back to right now, and then you can just refocus on. So the first thing is back to the present moment, even if it's just the writing on your pen, and then refocus on your task real quickly. So those are two very simple things. And focusing on detail has an incredible effect if you just practice it a few times, because it also brings back a sense of aliveness, a sense of newness and freshness because you're back in the present moment, right? You're alive again. You're at least beginning to tap into the flow again. Flow can only happen right now. Flow is flowing with what's happening. And there's no complaining about what's happening or getting stuck and wanting it to be different. There's no projecting and living in the future. Flow is happening right now. So when we notice the detail of something, that it pulls us back into flow. And practice it, because there is a wiring there that's the old pattern of maybe jumping around between a ton of browser tabs, to use that analogy. And you can undo that, however, by just refocusing yourself over and over and over. Keep doing that. It's slowly but surely. You'll feel 1% improvement, 2%, 3%, 5%. But hey, you'll feel the relief instantly, and the progress will happen. You're going to create a stronger foundation of staying present and focused on the task at hand. If you just keep repeating what you do want your experience to be, which is present with what you're doing. So that was a great question. Do we have another one? Okay. Why meditation is very important? Okay. Thank you, Bo. Meditation is really just a word that describes a state of being. And we think of it as this separate activity that we have to make time for. And yes, like going to the gym, you practice your awareness muscle when you're meditating, like your awareness muscle of your thoughts, your awareness of your feelings. And that's much of what we talked about today. This is where, when those things are awry, when we're not in tune and in alignment and not able to choose which thoughts to engage in, because we're monkey mind, we're just jumping from one branch to the next. And that's what's so crazy making. When we have that awareness around our thoughts, and when we have that awareness around our feelings, we have a choice to make whether or not to engage with those thoughts and feelings. So that's what we develop, that ability when we meditate. It's to come out of dependency on our environment for how we feel, which is really then the fun starts. So much about meditation and spirituality it's all about healing and kind of releasing stuck feelings, and it all has its place. It has to come first, but there's a whole world, a whole life beyond that once we are aware of our thoughts and feelings, that we truly have a choice what to engage in life and be part of the flow and be part of the bigger happening, as opposed to being stuck in our little thoughts. So that's when the fun starts. This is when you can really truly co-create, manifest the life that you really want. But for you to create that, you have to be able to be a lot more efficient and choiceful, if you will, about your what you give your attention to. So that's where meditation comes in as a practice, but ultimately it's a state that we bring into our daily situations. In fact, I mentioned how our senses are what keeps us glued to right now. Staying connected to our sensations keeps us present, because we're connected to how our bodies are literally interacting with the world around us. A guiding principle is that between 30 and 50% of your awareness should be with your sensations at all time. So this is ultimately the goal of meditation, is to generate a self-awareness, and that self-awareness is best captured in how connected do you feel to right now, to what's happening. And the degree of connection is, again, our awareness of our sensations. So through meditation, we practice, but ultimately it should become a state that we bring into every situation of at least a third to half of our awareness is always with our sensations, with your connected state. It doesn't matter if you're having a conversation, you can still be aware of what's coming up for you, how is your body responding, what is it telling you, the inner wisdom, and still be able to listen and hold a conversation. You can still stay connected when you're, giving a talk right now. I can feel my environment, the skin, there's a fan blowing in the air, and the cushions that I'm sitting on in this chair, my hat. There's just, you want to develop an awareness of your sensations, and that will just keep you present, keep you more and more present all the time. So meditation is ultimately just a state of being that we bring into our life, and it's returning us to our natural state of just being present and engaging with life and feeling our aliveness. So I hope that helped. Okay. We have another question. How many more questions do we have? 3 more? 4 more. Okay, let's get through these. We'll go a little over, but so that we can do an end meditation. Stephanie asks, how to really enjoy the uncertainties? It's freaking me out. Oh, I love that question. Woo! Wow. I'll try to keep it short because this one demands like a whole session. The mind wants to know things. It's completely freaked out, as you say, by the unknown. So when we purely live through the mental lens, then we're subject to this, the uncertainty of not knowing is only stressful to the mind. It's not stressful to our body when we're just experiencing something as it is, because there's no uncertainty in that. You're just present. Uncertainty happens when you're trying to predict the future again, when you're living in the future and what might happen, what could happen, what's going to happen. And you're in this kind of endless state of just confronting the unknown. But again, only the mind is uncomfortable with that because it's a tool meant to know things. There's nothing wrong with the mind. The mind wants to know things. And if we use it as a tool to know things, that's great. But if we're just believing our thoughts all the time, then we're glued to our thoughts. Then the thoughts that the mind will create is, ooh, scary future. Oh, afraid of the unknown. And that's what leads to, the freaky feelings. Ultimately, uncertainty is magical. It's mysterious. It's where as Deepak Chopra calls it, the infinite potentiality of everything that is possible exists in that uncertainty, in the unknown. You're connected to creativity, as we spoke about before. So that creativity doesn't come from stale knowledge. That's the past. But creativity comes from this vastness of everything that's possible, and that we can be co-creators, collaborators. It really is. Life is happening, and if you collaborate with it, then you're part of this infinite possibility field, quantum field that people talk about. And if you want to dig more into that research, it shows how our thoughts matter at the smallest level. Matter is always responding to our thoughts, so that our expectations of a situation start to influence the physical things that are in that environment. They start to respond and resonate to our frequency. So ultimately, it's a big topic, but the solution is to come out of the head again and live in your body, be present. That's when you just naturally don't have as many thoughts, or you're not consuming as many thoughts about what if and the uncertainty of that. It's only because you're giving it your attention that it feels frightful and scary. If we don't put our attention there, it sounds too simple to be true. But if you don't put your attention to what could be happening, then you won't be freaked out. It's what the contents of our life is, what we give our attention to. And so when those thoughts, again, this comes back to thought awareness, when those thoughts come along about the future, about what if, and what if this doesn't happen, or what if that happens, and what if I don't, achieve certain things, all this stuff, to develop awareness around those thoughts so that you can go, that thought doesn't behoove me. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. I'm just going to let that one go. Developing that awareness will naturally keep you vibrating high. Again, we weigh ourselves down with our attaching ourselves to these thoughts that are heavy. And when we stop attaching ourselves, giving our attention to these heavy thoughts, well, then our mood starts to just naturally lift. Our natural state is to be in ease and joy, and just kind of be vibrating at a very high level. It's only when we give our attention to thoughts and feelings that are heavy that it starts to weigh us down and weigh us down and weigh us down. Life feels anxious and small and scary, and we feel like we're alone. And when we come out of that attachment to thought, because a thought is tiny. So if we're consumed and identified with a thought, no wonder it's scary and anxious in there. It's a small place. But developing awareness of the thought. You become the container for thoughts and feelings to come along, enter and exit your experience. So you're bigger than your thoughts and feelings. You're not your thoughts and feelings. You are the awareness around your whole being, your whole existence. You're aware of your body. You're aware of your personality. You're aware of what you've come in with in this life. So you are the awareness. You're not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. And so training yourself to become aware of your thoughts and feelings will naturally raise your vibration. It will bring you out of that scary place. You won't feel tormented by your own thoughts, tormented by life, by situations, because you're bigger than the situations. It's a great question. I loved it. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, if karma is inevitable, Bernard asks, is it more logical to create a good karma instead of bad one? Okay. So my understanding of karma, the popular notion of it is that there's good karma and bad karma. Ultimately, there's just bad karma, meaning going against life, going against a situation, being in resistance to it, going against what your inner voice is telling you. So if you're in tune with yourself, if you're flowing with life, if you're in alignment with your inner wisdom, you're not generating any karma. You're just in alignment and you're living to the highest nature of what you can be. So the notion of good karma is a little, I think pop culture took it and maybe it made it into something it's not. Because if you think about what's the point of good karma, if you're out of alignment, then you're hurting yourself. But when you're in alignment, it's instantly good. You don't need to generate more for anything else. The way life in the universe works is it's instant. There's no, judgment day at the end where suddenly, your karma points across your lifetime, good deeds and bad deeds are added up, and then somehow there's some kind of final assessment. No, you instantly get rewarded for living in alignment. You feel good, you feel light, you feel fun, you feel creative, you're open to opportunity, you're experiencing just the magic of those infinite possibilities, and you're just flowing. So that's an instant reward for being in alignment and being in the flow. And if you go against the flow and you're trying to control and steer and live in your head and live in the past and reactivity and live in the future projections, chasing outcomes, all this high achiever stuff, then you instantly get punished. And that's, it's a hard word, but that's what it feels like. You feel depressed and you feel down, you feel disoriented and dismayed and discouraged, and like it feels like you're freaking out. All these thoughts about the uncertainty and all that, it's instant. There's a one-to-one relationship between what thoughts you give your attention to. Good thoughts, positive thoughts, uplifting thoughts, you immediately feel positive, good, and uplifted. Or negative thoughts that weigh you down and that feel depressed, you immediately feel weighed down and feel depressed. There's no lag between your own behavior and decision making and how it makes you feel and how the universe responds. It's instant. So karma ultimately is, living in alignment. Is you get rewarded instantly, and then the people around you, you're sharing that gift of positive feelings with everyone around you, because you are positive, and people around you will pick that up, and you're giving that gift of your own alignment to everyone around you without even trying. It's just because you're in a balanced state that will affect in a positive way everyone around you. So you don't even have to be specifically wanting to help others, but just by being in alignment, you will help heal others and heal the world. And then negative karma, of course, when you go against your inner voice, then the bad stuff starts to happen and you feel pulled down, and you're it can be really living in misalignment for a very long time can really harm you, your physical health, your mental well-being, You're just happiness and living, and the happiness that, instead of spreading happiness and joy and balance, if you're in misalignment, you start to spread misery and judgment and depression. And, you're affecting your environment very much. We're all connected. So the very priority of our existence is to self-care, take care of ourselves. And only then, if our cup is full, can we, be of service to others. Otherwise, we still have work to do on ourselves. That's another topic. I hope that was good. All right, one more. Okay. Has insecurity ever been useful to you? What about overconfidence? Wow. These are good questions. I would say insecurity is never useful. It's a result of believing your thoughts, that, many of which are outside voices that we've been imprinted with. Your inner truth is so rock solid. It feels completely differently than kind of a mental truth. The mental truth is subject to a barrage of, influences that we get from around ourselves. But our inner truth doesn't require constant validation. It doesn't require comparing and looking what are others thinking of me. All of this is kind of, that insecurity comes from being in your head. And that's where you're subject to these things. The mind has no intrinsic values. It just operates the way it does. And it needs to constantly look around and see what others are thinking of you. And this is where insecurity starts to take hold. But your inner wisdom, your inner truth is just this rock solid. You don't care what anybody else says. They can say what they want. It doesn't affect you because you just have this inner knowing. It comes from in here, from your body, from deep within. And the mental truth is flippant. It's that monkey mind again. From one moment to the next, you could be thinking something else is the right thing to do, and the next thing is the true thing. And it's never ending. Your inner truth. I sometimes get the question: how can you tell the difference between your inner truth and a kind of a mental truth? Well, your inner truth doesn't waver. Tomorrow you'll still be feeling your inner truth, and the day after, and so forth. Whereas the mental truth is you can get in the shower, and by the time you come back out, you have different ideas again about what's right and what's wrong. So it's very flippant and fickle, and that's just the nature of the mind. Your mind is incredibly fickle, and can't stay focused on anything for more than a few seconds. By the way, when it comes to manifestation, this is the one piece that is missing for if you've been trying to manifest your best possible life. As long as you're subject to your monkey mind, you can't hold a frequency long enough to manifest a frequency to manifest that on the outside. You're going to just be jumping between thoughts, and that's just confusing. The world doesn't have time to catch up to what you really want because you're jumping around constantly. So uncertainty is not a. It's actually a sign. If you're feeling uncertain, it's a sign that you're in your head. And to come out of that again, meditation will help. Connecting to your senses, bringing you to the present moment will help. Just to connect and open yourself up to that inner voice that arises, and that there's no uncertainty there. Certainly not there's no fear of not knowing there. There might be a sense of, especially in the beginning, I feel the need for a greater purpose in my life. I feel the need for a change, a growth, living from a deeper place. And at the beginning stage, you may not have like this all knowing, right? Deep knowing. But there's no panic or fear around that. You actually feel the void of like, I can deepen more. The messages start to come. It actually means you are connected. That the messages start to arise that you're seeking a deeper experience of life. And it's time to branch out and open up. You open yourself up to maybe more experiences and inputs. So what was the second part of that question? It was insecurity. Oh, overconfidence. That's a great question too. I really don't know if there's such thing as overconfidence. Is my initial thought. If you are overconfident, you'll probably get punished right away by the world, not by others, but just by like if you're riding a bicycle, learning to ride a bicycle, use that as an analogy, and you feel, oh, now I can ride the bicycle, and you feel like you can jump off sidewalk or a ramp or something, or go backwards or do wheelies, whatever it is, you'll very quickly be tamed to what your true capability is. So there too, I think there's, if you are overly confident, you very quickly kind of realize that somehow you'll be life has a way to realign you, bring you back down to earth. And so I guess there is that thing of overconfidence, but I don't think you can be overconfident for very long without being, it being exposed to you. All right, cool. We're a little over the hour. Is that it? Okay, so that's it for questions. Great stuff. Each one of these warranted its own thing. So before we go into the meditation, I wanted to announce a 6-week workshop series that is starting on the 19th. That's next Monday. It'll take place in lieu of these live Q&As. So it's at the same time, same channel. And for 6 weeks, we'll be really diving deep into the pillars of inner power, of shifting from a high achiever state. Much of the things we talked about, the being attached to outcome, chasing happiness, lost in thought, reactivity, lingering on situations, all of this stuff these are high achiever traits, whereas being present and in the flow and being more concerned with the journey and accepting that nothing is final and all this stuff, these are top performer traits. We'll be doing a 6-week workshop series that will take us from this high achiever state to the top performer state, going through all the 5 pillars of inner power. And look for that announcement via email, and also those who are part of the WhatsApp private inner power chat. You will see information about that posted there. Those who are not inner power members, we have can somebody post the link, please? We have our conscious community where you will experience, the latest, greatest about what's happening and be able to meet others just like we have here. And you can sign up for that. There's a free trial. There it is. And then the 6-week workshop will be free, and you can join that. And it's a much more systematic build up across all these topics that we've been talking about, so that you can not just intellectually understand things. That's the first step always, is to expose yourself to the information and then, rationally, intellectually get it. But this will help embody and have it sink in to your being, your essence, so that you can actually live by it. There we go. All right. Anyone that wants to click on that, I'll give you a second to click on that and open that in another browser. All these browser tabs. Okay. With that said, let's do a 5-minute thought awareness practice. Those who are doing this for the first time, I'm going to guide you through the whole thing, so you don't have to wonder. And it's very simple, and it's extremely powerful, and it's something we'll be doing it for 5 minutes, but it's something you can do for 5 seconds. Even doing it for 5 seconds is helpful, and you can feel the impact it has on you. Again, meditation is ultimately not a separate activity. It's a state of being that we bring into our daily life. And this little exercise is in the same way that one of the questions was about how to refocus. when you lose focus and your mind is driving you nuts, is to focus on the detail. Well, we're going to practice focusing on the detail, in this case of our breath, for 5 minutes, and you'll see the impact of the calming and the focusing and the quieting and the decluttering effect that has, and the opening yourself up, your energy field, to what's happening, and tuning into that inner voice and allowing that inner wisdom to arise. And that is your guidance system. And it's there just for you. It's your blueprint, and it'll make life a lot easier and more fun to live by that. All right, with that said, let's find a comfortable position with your spine straight, bones stacked, and with your eyes and mouth closed. Focus on the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. If you have trouble locating your breath, you may breathe slightly harder once or twice. And once you feel the touch of your breath, return to natural breath, normal breath. Let the detail of your breath pull you in closer, closer to the present moment. If it's shallow breath, let it be shallow. If it's deep breath, let it be deep. If it's more in the left nostril, let it be in the left nostril. If it's more in the right nostril, let it be the right nostril. Or if it's in both nostrils, let it be both. Notice the temperature of the incoming breath. Notice the temperature of the outgoing breath. Notice if there's a difference. Notice the pace of the incoming breath. Notice the pace of the outgoing breath. Notice if there's a difference. And whenever you find that your mind has wandered, simply notice it. And without frustration, bring your attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. Natural breath. Normal breath. Observe your breath as it is, not wanting it to be different. When you feel ready, you may gradually open your eyes. Relax your body. Notice your environment. Notice yourself in your environment. Notice the energy in your body. Notice your aliveness. So as we round out our weekend, or those of you who are in the new week already, stay connected to that aliveness, that sense of presence, sense of collaborating with life, co-creating your best life. It's all there. So up to you to open up the channel, to receive the answers. I thank you all for joining, despite it being Super Bowl Sunday for many. So we've prioritized our mental and spiritual and physical well-being. So that's great. Pat yourselves on the back. And definitely sign up for the 6-week program coming up, starting next week. And we'll really take a deep dive into all these topics with practical solutions and methods that we can take into our daily life. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a splendid rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.